Hi, digital photography. Sorry, I just got out of the shower, so my hair's all wet. Just a couple things before we get started here. For the next 3 weeks, we're going to be going through black and white photography. I'm going to be providing some YouTube videos as well as some samples of black and white photography. So right now I'm just going to go through just a quick review of how to shoot in manual mode, ISO, white balance, getting your exposure correct, just some basic things you're going to need in order to shoot black and white photography successfully. And this week we're going to concentrate on nature since it's Earth Week, so all things outside, landscapes, close-ups of nature. And then next week we're going to go into abstracts in black and white, and then the week after that we're going to end black and white photography with black and white portraits. So that's just the progression of things for the next 3 weeks. So now I'm going to take you into just a quick review of manual mode. Okay, so a real quick review of manual mode. First of all, make sure that you are shooting in the M. Even though we're going to be shooting in black and white, we're not going to be shooting in the creative auto mode. We will be translating the pictures to black and white through Lightroom. Okay. Once you're here in the manual mode, again, it's your choice whether you want to use the automatic focus or the manual focus. Determines whether or not you're shooting with depth of field or not. So if you want to control your depth of field, switch it over to manual. If that's not an issue and you're just shooting large landscapes or whatever, you can go ahead and shoot in automatic focus. Okay, this brings us to our screen. So when you're shooting in manual mode, the very first thing you need to do is observe your setting and focus on your ISO. So we're going to click on our ISO. If I go ahead and look outside right now, I'm taking a picture outside, you'll notice that it is a bright and sunny day. Okay? So that is going to be our first focus, is changing that ISO. Because it is a bright sunny day, we need to set our ISO to 100 and make it at the least amount sensitive to the light. Okay, remember, the bigger the number, the more sensitive your camera's microchip is to light. So if it's bright and sunny, we don't want to make that microchip super sensitive or our pictures are going to be way too bright. So I'm going to go ahead and set that on 100. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is set our white balance. Okay. You saw outside it was bright and sunny, so I'm going to want to set my white balance to daylight. Okay. If it's shady or cloudy or wherever you're shooting, that is where you want to set your white balance. Okay. So I'm going to select daylight for that. All right, now that I have those two things set, now I need to focus in on my shutter speed and my aperture, okay? And it's all gonna be dependent on what you're taking your picture of. The great thing about being in control in manual mode is being able to control the exposure of your pictures, okay? So when we worked with silhouettes, you notice that we made our pictures underexposed on purpose. It was intentional. Sometimes you'll want to intentionally make your pictures overexposed, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and take a picture of what's in front of me right here, which is just this vase of flowers. Okay, so when I take my picture and I focus in, I'm gonna notice that right now, with the current setting, I'm way underexposed, okay? So remember, use your meter here to help you along with getting your exposure correct. Now, what can I do to make my exposure correct? There's two different things I can do. I can either, because it's too dark, I'm going to need to make my shutter speed slower since my f-stop's already as big as it can get. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and focus on there again. And again, it's still underexposed, okay? And I'm gonna keep on adjusting that until it reads at the 0, okay? Okay, and you can see from that picture that I just took, it's perfectly exposed, okay? So again, just to review, after you've set your ISO, your white balance, you need to adjust these two depending on your exposure, okay? Remember, never let your shutter speed get under 1/30 without a tripod, or you're going to see shake. Your hands just can't hold it sturdy enough, okay? So you can also adjust your f-stop, okay, by just holding down the button that says AV and then toggling the same way that you would with your shutter speed, okay, in order to get the exposure that you want. So that's just a quick review of manual mode. All right, so I took some pictures of some natural objects outside in manual mode. And since we're focusing on black and white, we have to go into Lightroom and edit them, okay? Here's a picture that I took when it was snowing the other day. So this picture is pretty average, I'd say, in terms of interest, but when we make it black and white, it's just gonna take it kind of to the next level. Make sure you watch those 2 videos that I posted, the one about Ansel Adams, and then also the one about tips to shooting black and white. That one is really important to understanding different techniques you can use in black and white photography. Okay, so for here, I'm gonna go ahead and start in the presets. So that little button over on the right hand side with the 2 intersecting circles, and then going down to the one that's specifically just for black and white. So I'm going to start here and kind of go through and find a filter of black and white that works best for this picture. Like you can see, this one here is way too bright. That one's better. That one's terrible. That one's awful. Terrible. No. No. So I'm going to go with that high contrast. It's definitely the best option for black and white. So I'm going to go ahead and hit done. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to, after I've turned it black and white, I'm going to go ahead and mess with the exposure here a little bit. Okay. I'm really going to push that contrast with my black and white. I really want to hit up the highlights here. But really pushing up the texture, I can see the texture in that grain of wood, and that snow is really starting to stand out there. Definitely not. And the vignette is really nice sometimes just to kind of blur out the edges. All right, I'd say that looks pretty good. So you can see where I took an ordinary picture and really turned it into something much more interesting. And this really has a nice abstract quality to it. So I'm going to go ahead and call that one done and export it to my camera roll. And then I'm going to go ahead and edit one that's a little bit less abstract looking. All right, let's go back to my gallery here. Here's another one I took when it was snowing. Again, you're going to start with those 2 little intersecting circles on the side, and just start with going through your black and white filters and finding the best one. Okay, trying to hit that zone 1 to 8, like we saw in the video about Ansel Adams. Like this black and white landscape's really nice, not as good. That one's okay. No, no, no. Definitely not. No. That one's kind of nice. So I'm looking between like the sepia tone and the landscape. I'm actually going to go with the black and white landscape that has probably the most. And then I'm going to go back and mess with the exposure a little bit. And you're just playing around with the highlights and the shadows to what gives me the most zones of black and white that I can get here. Okay, and that's looking pretty good. And you can see how taking the color out of a picture can just change the whole feeling of the picture. I'm going to go ahead and export that to my camera roll as well. So go outside this week. It's supposed to be decent out. Have some fun looking at nature, maybe taking some pictures that are very close up of nature, and then going ahead and editing them into the black and white.